What is going on, YouTube? It's Cam Jam here bringing you another YouTube video. Today I'm going to be looking at, we're going to be looking at the 2020 free agency. This is going to be the first of many videos that I'm going to be hoping to bring out to you guys about the upcoming free agency for the 2020 NFL season. Today we're going to be looking at the quarterbacks, the most important position on the football field. And I'm going to be bringing you four guys that I think are pretty much near locks to be coming back to their current situation, current team, and four guys that I think are going to be moving on from their current situation, current team. So let's go ahead and get straight into it. First guy that I'm going to be bringing up is Taysom Hill. I think it's pretty much a lock that he's going to be coming back to New Orleans. There's already been, reports out of New Orleans that Sean Payton wants Taysom Hill to be the heir apparent to Drew Brees, whether it's this year as the starter, whether it's next year, whatever year it ends up being. And as you can see on the stats that are on Taysom Hill's page here, Taysom Hill has not really done much production from the quarterback position. He's made his big splash plays or whatever, but he has not been a guy that has stepped in for Drew Brees like Teddy Bridgewater did. Teddy Bridgewater earned his contract, next contract he's going to be getting, whether it's 15 to 20 mil. But if someone were to go out and try to sign Taysom Hill for the same kind of contract that Teddy Bridgewater is going to get, it would probably be the worst free agent signing of the season. But I think Taysom Hill is probably going to get somewhere near probably $6 to $8 million a year for about a 2 to 3 year contract. I just don't see anyone willing to shell out a lot of money for a quarterback who has not played really at all. And he's already 30 years old, I believe. So the quarterback that you're signing is the quarterback you're getting. And if what you're getting is not something that you fully believe in, then you're going to have a rough 2 or 3 years trying to convince yourself that Taysom Hill was a good signing. I think he's pretty much a near lock to come back to New Orleans. He's going to be the backup to Drew Brees. And then he's going to take over for Drew, whether he leaves in free agency the next year or he retires. The next guy up is Ryan Tannehill. Again, I believe he's pretty much a lock to come back to Tennessee. Whether it is a long-term deal or what I believe is probably going to happen, be a the franchise tag situation with Ryan Tannehill. He really rejuvenated not only the offense, but really the whole team. Once he stepped in for Marcus Mariota. The running game took off. Even the passing game took off. I believe he had about 20 touchdowns this year after he stepped in. And he really just had the ability to push the ball down the field more than Marcus Mariota did. It seemed like Mariota was just content to punt instead of trying to move the ball down the field. I don't really know how Mariota even kept the job as long as he did. But thankfully, Ryan Tannehill was able to take over the starting job. I think he's probably going to get franchise tagged. I don't see it as being near a lock as Taysom Hill. I think it's probably 95% chance Taysom Hill goes back to New Orleans. I think it's probably 90% chance Ryan Tannehill stays in Tennessee. A couple teams I could see him going to. One team would be the New York Jets as a backup, just because they can't rock with, Trevor Siemian as their backup quarterback again. They just need a backup quarterback to have for at least a year. I think it's about 90% chance Ryan Tannehill stays, either as the franchise tag or as a long-term contract. Next guy up is Drew Brees, and I know you see those couple of teams that I have down there for my prediction other than the New Orleans Saints. I think it's about 80 to 85% chance that Drew Brees stays in New Orleans. Just to, I think there's some history that Drew Brees wants to rewrite. He's had 3 straight heartbreaking losses in the playoffs these past 3 years, whether it's the miracle in Minneapolis, whether it's the blown call last year, whether it's just flat out getting beat by Minnesota this year. So I believe that he probably will stay in New Orleans. However, 2 teams I could see him going to is the New England Patriots and the Las Vegas Raiders. I I could see him going to New England just because the problem that we've been hearing in New England this past year is that they don't really have weapons. However, Drew Brees has been a guy throughout at least the past 5 or 6 years where he takes weapons that he has and makes them great no matter what. Whether he's throwing to backup tight ends, whether he's throwing to undrafted rookies, whether he's throwing to, guys who are in their 10th plus year, like Ted Ginn Jr., and, rejuvenating their career, making their career last even longer. So that's a team I could see him going to, especially in that Josh McDaniels offense. New England and New Orleans I'm not going to say they run similar offenses, but they both attacked like the intermediate and short game in the passing attack, as well as a team that I could see, trying to make a big splash. They're moving to a new city, moving to Las Vegas. Could be the Las Vegas Raiders. I think John Gruden would love to have Drew Brees over Derek Carr for just a year. Even though I don't think Derek Carr was really necessarily bad last year, I just think that, there's a certain stigma around Derek Carr right now that makes it seem as though he's worse than he is, even though he completed about 70% of his passes last year. But I think Las Vegas could just be looking to make a splash, seeing as they're moving to Las Vegas from Oakland this year. And Drew Brees could be a guy that they look at to make that splash, especially if they lose out on a guy that we're going to talk about later in this video. But next up, I have Jameis Winston. I have Jameis going back to Tampa Bay. I believe that's about 70% chance that he goes back to Tampa Bay. Tampa's got about $90 million in cap space this year, so they have a little bit of money to spend in terms of bringing Jameis back, and they probably have more leverage over Jameis than he has over them because he's coming off a season where he just threw 30 interceptions. I mean, he can't really prove his value that much just based off the season that he had. He can't really prove his value that much. However, I do also see the Las Vegas Raiders being a team that he could get a call from, as well as the Carolina Panthers. Carolina, just because if they decide to move off Cam Newton this year, I don't think they fully believe in Kyle Allen or even believe at all in Will Grier. So Jameis could be a guy to come in and just help them stay competitive, because I don't really think they're looking to, completely hit the reset button and rebuild quite yet. So bring in Jameis for 1 to 2 years, and he can keep them competitive, maybe even lead them to a playoff win or two. But I really believe that he's probably going to go back to Tampa Bay. But yeah, I also believe Las Vegas and Carolina could be possible suitors for him as well. Alrighty, so that's the first 4 guys that I believe are going to be staying with their current team, current situation. Next is going to be the 4 guys that I believe are going to head out in free agency. And the first guy actually I want to bring up is a guy that I don't think is going to find a new team. It's Phillip Rivers. I think that he's going to end up retiring at the end of this season, or at the end of this free agency period, because I don't really see a team wanting to go after a 38-year-old quarterback who's coming off possibly his worst season as a starter, especially given the fact that he had plenty of weapons. He had Hunter Henry, he had Keenan Allen and Mike Williams, he had Austin Eckler, and he had Melvin Gordon, not for the full season. I think maybe that was part of the problem with Phillip Rivers, is the team around him wasn't up to they weren't around him all the time, and maybe there was an offensive line issue, but he's still 38 years old. He's still coming off his worst season possibly he's ever had. I just don't see many teams wanting to go after a 38-year-old quarterback who's coming off his worst season. It's possible that he gets a backup role, but he's an immobile quarterback. He's older. He's going to be asking for starting. He's going to be asking for the starting position, and he's going to be asking for a lot of money. I just don't see that end up happening with Phillip Rivers this year. So I believe that his best option would probably be retirement. He's had a great run, but I think it needs to end now, or else his legacy is going to get tarnished forever. Next up is a guy that I for sure believe is going to be moving on from his current situation. That is Marcus Mariota. It's 100% chance he's leaving. It's 100% chance that Tennessee is not bringing him back. And it's 100% chance, at least I believe it's 100% should be happening, that he is a backup quarterback next year. The three teams I have are Chicago, New York Jets, and the Philadelphia Eagles. All three of these as backup roles. The one team that he could start with would be the Chicago Bears, because, they would probably be bringing him in as competition for Mitchell Trubisky, whereas the Jets and the Eagles would be bringing him in as solely a emergency quarterback. Sam Darnold has gone down his first two seasons, and the ship has completely sunk in New York, and they just need a backup quarterback who can at least keep the team alive while Sam Darnold gets back from his injury. And as well as the Philadelphia Eagles, the Eagles cannot go into a playoff game with Josh McCown as their quarterback. Whoever ends up being their backup quarterback next year, they can't go into it with that guy there, because Carson Wentz has proven over and over and over and over again that he cannot stay healthy for a full 16-game season and a playoff stretch. And I know it led to a Super Bowl ring with Nick Foles, but that formula cannot work year after year after year. At least it can't work if you have guys like Josh McCown being your backup quarterback. So Marcus Mariota could come in if he has an uber amount of talent around him. If Philadelphia fixes their secondary issue and they get at least one or two wide receivers in free agency, they still have Dallas Goedert and Zach Ertz. They still have a solid offensive line. And Marcus Mariota is an athletic quarterback that can move in the pocket, get out of the pocket, and throw on the run as well. So I believe that will probably be the best move that he could go to. It would be the Philadelphia Eagles if he's wanting to win and be in a situation where he can contribute to a winning team. I think Philadelphia would probably be the best option, but I also see Chicago being an option if he wants to start. I also see New York being an option as well. Next up, the third quarterback from New Orleans that's hitting free agency this year is Teddy Bridgewater. I think it's 100% chance that he's leaving New Orleans. And the three teams that I have, it might be a little bit of a surprise, but I also have Teddy Bridgewater possibly going to Tampa Bay. Indianapolis is an option, and as well as Chicago. Tampa Bay would literally just be if Jameis doesn't get the franchise tag, and if Jameis decides to move on from Tampa Bay, or they just decide that they want to bring in someone else. You could say that the 7-9 Tampa Bay Buccaneers, if they would have had someone like Teddy Bridgewater, they could have gone 10-6 or even like 11-5 and made the playoffs, even, competed for the divisional title in the NFC South. But, they had Jameis and they went 7-9. But I think a guy like Teddy Bridgewater would really flourish in Tampa Bay. You give him two elite receivers in Chris Godwin, and you also give him Mike Evans. And then you also, their running game isn't amazing, but they have two solid young running backs in Peyton Barber and Ronald Jones. And they also have two decent tight ends in O.J. Howard and Cameron Brate. Really, the only problem along that offense is they have a couple of holes along the offensive line. DeMar Dotson might be leaving in free agency, or he might be retiring. It's unknown, really, at this point. But if they were to bring in Teddy Bridgewater and then just shore up their offensive line a little bit, this offense, they already were elite last year, but they could go from elite to, all-time good, just with the weapons that they have around the quarterback position and guys who could just purely win based off their talent and their skill level alone. And if he were to go to Indianapolis, I don't see it working out as much as other people do. I think Teddy Bridgewater is more along the Jacoby Brissett mold than many people really think. But there are weapons in Indianapolis. There is a winning culture there in place that I think Teddy Bridgewater would be able to embrace. And there's a solid defense there as well. I just don't see it being as great of a fit as many other people do. I really have Indianapolis there because I think they're going to be looking to spend a lot of money to try to bring in somebody to compete with Brissett. But again, I don't really see it working out as much as other people do. And then again, I have Chicago being an option. I think Chicago would be only the option if they were to call Teddy Bridgewater and say, you're for sure going to be the starter if you come in here. But if he goes in there and is the backup quarterback, then there's really no point to the move. So I think he really would only be going to Chicago if it's for sure being a starter, for sure getting paid, $20 to $25 million a year. But other than that, I think Chicago's kind of out. I think really the only two options that he has are Tampa Bay and Indianapolis, because I think it's about 100% chance that he's not returning to New Orleans. The only way he would go back to New Orleans is if Drew Brees and Taysom Hill leave, and that's pretty close to not happening. But, there's always a chance. It's the NFL. There's always a chance at something crazy happening. Alrighty, and the last guy, the golden boy of free agency, Tom Brady. I have him about 80 to 85% chance leaving. And I have the three teams that I believe would probably be his best options. I have that being the Las Vegas Raiders, the Los Angeles Chargers, and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Again, three teams who have weapons along their offense. Three teams who he'd be moving into, you take your choice, Tampa Bay, Los Angeles, or Las Vegas over New England. I think he would take any three of those any day over New England, as well as I think his wife would take that choice. I think it's probably a better chance that he goes to Las Vegas than the other two, because Las Vegas probably has the better chance of winning. Of any three of those teams that have a chance of winning a Super Bowl next year, I think Las Vegas is probably that team. But it would be a highly scrutinized move, both for Las Vegas and for Brady. I do think, though, that's probably his best option. A team that I think is a dark horse, though, is Tampa Bay. Because Tampa Bay, like I said, they've got two elite outside receivers. They got two great they've got a great young tight end and then a solid other tight end. They've got two decent running backs, and then all they would have to do is just fill out their offensive line. They would need another guard, and they need a right tackle. And again, they have about $90 million to spend in free agency. So they could get, along the offensive line, someone like Jack Conklin from Tennessee. I believe another guard that's available is Brandon Scherf from the Washington Redskins. There's a possibility that lines up, but I think he would more like to see if they fill out the offensive line and get a better running back first, especially a running back who can catch out of the backfield. But I think it's more than likely he's going to be going back to Las Vegas, or going to Las Vegas in free agency. I see that, I don't really think he's going to go back to New England. There's a possibility it happens, but I think, just off the fact that he's been kind of looked at in New England as the guy that has to do everything. He has never really been given a true number one receiver, and every number one receiver that he gets either gets cut, or they have some sort of problem that goes wrong, or they get traded, or guys that they bring in to be number one receivers just don't end up working out, like Mohamed Sanu. I think New England, I think it would be a healthy divorce for the two. It would be weird to see Tom Brady play in a different jersey, but I think it's probably time for him to move on from New England. He's given them six Super Bowls in his 20 or so years he's been there. So yeah, I think his best option would probably be to move on from New England and go to any of those three teams, most likely Las Vegas, but also the LA Chargers and the Tampa Bay Buccaneers being possible suitors for him. So that's going to be the video, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, make sure you guys leave a like down below. And if there's a guy that you think I missed, I don't think I missed anybody, but if there's someone that you think I missed, or if there's someone else that you want to talk about, just leave a comment down below. If you're looking forward to more videos from me, just hit the subscribe button. I'm going to be trying. It's Friday at the time of me recording this. Maybe on Sunday, getting maybe the running backs or the wide receivers put out there. But yeah, again, that's going to be the video from me. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will see you guys later.